Hello, Internet. I am Corion, your witch in residence. And today I've got something special for you because I'm not alone. I've decided that October is such an important month that it's going to take two witches to deal with the movies we're talking about this week. So, to bring her in, ladies and gentlemen, please meet Gabrielle. Gabrielle, hi. It's wonderful to have you in.
Hi.
So, I guess YouTube has decided that since, I am the completely unofficial witch in residence, I deserve, I suppose, an intern in residence. Yeah. So we decided we would get together and mix up a batch of midnight margaritas.
Flip the switch and let the cauldron bubble.
Pull out our witch's brew and enjoy some practical magic.
Awesome.
All right.
So
for those not in the know, Practical Magic started as a novel by Alice Hoffman, but quickly became a cult classic in the form of the 1998 film starring Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. Was directed by Griffin Dunn. The film features two sisters who are outcasts in their small island town, estranged because of a generational curse that makes men fall in love with die, the same curse that took their father's life. The sisters are bound through curse and oath, swearing to spend the rest of their lives together as lonesome spinsters, convinced that any hope for love will only end in tragedy. Which really sounds like some sort of Nora Roberts book, but it's got some fun elements to it that have definitely got some interesting pieces together with it, and I thought it might be fun to discuss it. Now, before we get too deep in, though, there's a little bit of obligatory ritual that being on YouTube we must complete, which of course is, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. We would really appreciate it if you go and click that subscribe button and give the video a like, especially if you like the two of us talking back and forth, because we are awesome. It is October. It is the month of Halloween. And we want to do something special for you, but we want to know that you guys like that something special. So give it a like, give it a share out, let the world know how awesome Gabrielle is, and let's get it all together. Okay, with the obligatory ritual out of the way, let's discuss the film a little bit. So I'm assuming you've watched the film once or twice over the years.
Once or twice. A lot.
Right. And
whenever I feel like in a random July,
Exactly, right? Like, you mix up the midnight margaritas, and you go and you sit and
when
enjoy
you're in
the
the
movie.
witchy mood,
Exactly. So let me ask you this, okay? As a fellow witch, what draws you to the movie? Why do you think, it's something that we as witches would enjoy?
Well, I mean, it's a cute little love story with other things involved. For me personally, that and only one other movie I would say is the closest depiction of real life witchcraft. Even though it's not, it's the closest. So it's kind of nice to see us properly depicted on camera as opposed to evil, spooky, green painted,
all green and warty.
We're lawyers and doctors and your random,
coffee shop owner,
shop people, baristas, and we work at fast food joints and stuff like that. Like, we're normal people. We just are a little extra special.
Yeah, we just do a little fun stuff on the side. I think what really attracts me to Practical Magic is the day in and day out elements of craft that come up are some of the best depictions of how real witches would use their abilities in a day-to-day manner. Like, if I could get my cup to stir itself
on your head,
if I don't put it on my head,
the thing that would happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get through a green light.
Washing dishes. Come on.
Exactly, right? Like, these are the kind of things we would absolutely do. Be able to get pancakes into funky shapes. I mean, we would do that, right? Like, just because it's fun, and it's, these are the kind of things that real people doing real stuff, living in the real world would do. On top of that, I also felt that the depiction of the girls as, just like, the parent slash cool aunt to these two kids, and that the rest of the community isn't really sure what to do with them because they're a little different. But throughout the movie, the community realizes just how kind of normal in terms of, hey, everybody needs help sometimes. Everybody has that ex-boyfriend or ex that really needs to go away. Not every one of them winds up undead and possessing people, but we all have that one that really needs to go away. And
I mean, yeah, I never really had those kind of problems, but I did resonate in terms of me being the outcast. People in my very small hometown, they spread rumors very quickly when I told the wrong person that I'm interested in witchcraft. And then all of a sudden I became a voodoo priestess. I don't know how that happened. I don't practice that. I don't know. They just are very ill-informed and don't know what they're talking about. So,
and the nice thing about the movie too is it showed that when the community did get informed and did realize, it came together around the sisters. And I thought that was a wonderful message too. That
Do you have any friends?
Linda! Hi, it's Sally. I'm activating the phone tree. Look, you know the stuff that everyone's always whispering about me, the hexes, spells, Well, here's the thing. I'm a witch.
Messages and how positive that is. And I felt like that was a wonderful piece in this. That's why I enjoy it anyway.
Sometimes you just need a little magic in your life,
Exactly. And I mean, it's a shame that the critics have really torn into this movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was reading like through the IMDb, through the Rotten Tomatoes, everything else. Yo, they hate this movie. And
they're not evil, right?
Right. Like,
not evil.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, like, I really don't think they gave this movie a really decent shake. Right. I mean, yes, there are some pieces in there that I think are worthy of discussion. For example, the well-meaning aunts deciding to use magic without consent on the sisters to try to get her a boyfriend. Speaking for myself, and I think for you, I think you would agree on this. Anytime you're doing any sort of magical or mystical work, consent is super important, just like anything in real life, right? I mean, consent matters. And doing stuff, I mean, we clearly see the ramifications of their lack of consent, right? I mean, like the lack of consent on this, it turns it into something dark and something not so great. Well, and we see that.
I've actually had some conversations with other fellow witches, and they were like, I was dumb in my early high school days, did a love spell. The guy was obsessed with me for 3 days and then didn't want to have anything to do with me afterwards. So, like, yes, consent does matter. If you want to know if a guy likes you, just ask. You don't have to do a spell over it,
And you'd be surprised how, speaking as a guy, how often a beautiful, wonderful young lady coming up and just saying, hey, I think you're awesome. We should go and get a coffee and talk. How effective that really is, right? I mean, shockingly
guys like
so.
Bluntness, and girls are scared of that.
Right. But I mean, if anything, one of the things we can definitely take away is, this movie shows, if anything, that how good being courageous about your practical daily life, how important that is, and how vital it is to being the person you're supposed to be. So I think that's something we can take away from it too, in a lot of good ways, right? And I mean, I do love the ants in this. The ants are classic textbook examples of what the old biddy witches that you and I have had to deal with on more than one occasion. Right?
Yeah, they definitely got that one right.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, they're they're so much like the people that we've that we've been mentored by over the years. Of course, now, for point of clarification, Gabriel and I have trained under very similar individuals. So, when we talk about the wonderful greatness that is the wise and powerful pervy sage, we are talking about the same individual. And he is wonderful. He is great. He is a wise, caring, wonderful guy. But he's definitely yeah, exactly, right. And you get that feeling occasionally in the movie, like he was almost kind of standing around in the background advising, almost, doesn't it? Right. So,
point of note: if I ever have a partner and I want to test him out to figure out whether he hangs out with the right crowd, I'll make him go to him and have a conversation. He's my buffer.
Right. I mean, like, if he can survive pervy sage, he can survive anything.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I would say that a lot of the smaller fantastical elements, they seem fairly accurate to some of the things that we've received training on, in the past. I don't want to get into how some of these things could possibly be achieved, because, to be perfectly honest, if you want to do that, there's a whole lot of books and a whole lot of training that you need to go through. Exactly. It's not something we're going to cover here. Do not try to summon the ancient powers of the universe unless you're a trained professional witch. Right. So
I've heard some horror stories.
Right.
I wanted to see if it would work, and I'm scared because it did.
Right. And I mean, like, now some of the larger fantastical elements in the movie, like resurrecting something. Now, that is something we would never do.
No.
Right. And to me, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but the most straightforward one to me has always been that one of the big things about Wicca and craft is a veneration of the cycle. Right. Now, when we say that, we're talking about life, death, renewal, and birth, and starting that cycle over again. So to me, resurrecting somebody or bringing them out of that cycle would effectively be breaking the cycle. It's like probably one of the dumbest, scariest, stupidest things you could do.
Moral code 101.
Right. Like, I mean, both of us passed the ethics class. So, I mean, we're both right there going, yeah, no, like, this isn't something.
Much as I love my parents, when they go, they're gonna go.
Right. I mean, on top of that too, there's also a piece of, like, we were talking about consent earlier, right? I mean, somebody who's passed can't consent to come back.
If I'm allowed to talk about Buffy season 5, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but in season 6 they brought her back without her consent, and she was like, I was happy where I was. I didn't want to come back. I don't know why you brought me back. Something as simple as that.
Wait a minute. Did you just give a spoiler warning for like a 30-year-old series?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, all right, that's cool. That's
in case the young ones haven't seen it.
Dem youngins. Like,
yeah,
what
dem
are we?
Youngins. I get to
say what are we? What are we, like, taking our brooms and brushing them off our lawn now? Like,
right.
So, yeah, and I mean, like, some of the other pieces I thought were really awesome. Like, when the witches were in trouble, they do reach out to their brothers and sisters. I mean, we wouldn't use brooms to build some sort of elaborate hexagonal circle, although that would look really cool.
That looked really, really cool. I can understand why they did that aesthetically for film. I understand, as you and me as practicing witches, I think we can both understand from a practicing witch standpoint why they did what they did and why it's wrong, but why it looked better on film. And that was one of them.
Right. Like, I mean, you and I would probably use what, like,
wouldn't look as cool, or like,
or seeds or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just at Hamilton Pagan Pride, and they did seeds because it makes sense, because you're not littering and you're now feeding the birds, and that makes sense. But in a home, a home setting, it's faster to do something as a broom, and I get that. And yeah, it just
and again, like the crazy geometric pattern of it looked super cool.
Yeah, it did.
But you know, practicality wise, right?
Hold your ground, hold your broom.
Yeah, right. Like, and you know, like I will also say this, like, generally as a rule, witches try not to interfere with the lives of other witches, which we see a lot here. Is basically the other witches in the movie meddling with everybody. I mean, I don't know about you, but I try to stay out of everyone else's like witchy life as almost a professional courtesy, right? Like, you know, like you know, go ahead and be like the fantastic, like dark goddess of the night that you need to be, you know, when you need to be, and let me do my crazy, cool, weird, you know, stuff here, right? It's like a balancing act there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just, you know, that was something
just like the drama, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like that feels like it was really there so that there'd be some drama between them. But in real life, you know, most of us would probably be like, "Oh, you're gonna go do whatever ritual. Okay, well, go have fun. I'm, you know, gonna watch Scrubs or something, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Most witches' lives are pretty boring unless we're doing ritual.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like just take any spiritual belief. We're no different. It's just we light candles and incense just like everybody else.
Right? And we stand around, we sit down sometimes and wave our hands around occasionally.
And we
right?
sing.
Like yeah, and sing, right? The other one that I thought was kind of interesting is they mention pretty heavily in the movie the use of Belladonna. Now, yes, that is definitely a herb
that was
that
a
is
fantastical thing for sure.
well, Belladonna working that way for sure, but
yeah.
You know, I know many witches that actually use Belladonna in sacred rituals. It is considered a sacred herb. It's just one of those ones that you got to be very careful with because, you know, it can do some pretty screwy stuff to you if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
So I did think it was cool that they included it. I just don't think that they did a good job of showing off the potential inherent dangers of using it, especially with alcohol. That seems like mixing, like, you know, that's like, you know, somebody
like
taking a little,
alcohol.
Yeah, right. Like, or like Vicodin and booze, right? Like it's not a good plan, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, the other thing that I thought was interesting is, did you know that they actually had, a actual real witch consulting on the film?
I knew about the one for the craft. I didn't know that they had one for practical magic.
Yes, they actually did hire one, but here's where things get weird and interesting. So I was able to actually track down the witch that was involved in my research. I got the name. Now, I am not going to utter the name on YouTube.
Fair.
Because a couple of different reasons. One of the big ones being that it turns out that after consulting on the film, she actually tried to blackmail the director for more money, threatening to put some sort of curse on the production, which, I mean, you know, in hindsight may explain the critic reviews, but yeah, apparently they had to pay her off additional money, right? But they apparently had to pay her off additional money to get her to lay off on it. So they took it very seriously. Now, the reason why I'm not mentioning her, of course, is because you know, I don't want anyone potentially hearing about this and like trying to track her down and cause her grief because, again, professional courtesy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was fascinating, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never, our order certainly would not believe in using curses for blackmailing for money. Like that seems like the most antithesis of witchy thing to do, right? Like,
although I have to say, I will confess this.
Okay.
I did tell a boyfriend that tried to break up with me over text, not to piss off a witch. I said, anything that's bad that happens to you, just know it was me. I've done nothing. I've I've never done anything. I just wanted him to get all shaky in his boots.
Well, I'll freely admit, there are, I have said on more than one occasion that Kathleen Kennedy of Lucasfilm fame definitely has raised my ire and has seen the ramifications of doing so. But, all I'm going to say is all she has to do is step down from Lucasfilm and our conflict ends. Just saying, lady. But, I'm not saying anything happened. I'm just saying that's all you have to do, Kathleen, is step down. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Are there any specific scenes that you want to talk about that you think are kind of like neat or interesting?
Honestly, I really liked when, God, it's been a while since I've watched it. I went looking for it on Netflix, couldn't find it. I wanted to watch it before, and now I'm probably going to find it later and go, oh, I should have talked about this. I should have talked about that. But I really like how, oh God, who was it that was in the little sort of kind of witchy, not witchy store that was operating it? Or hobbies and love into an everyday job. Whether we're doing tarot and oracle readings or what have you, any other type of thing like that. Also, I really like the fact of how they used the right amount of special effects in the right places.
Yes.
You don't need a whole lot to show a whole lot. You can allude to a lot of things, and as simple as the bug, and when the spell with the two colored eyes, and how can he be exactly this way, da 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 da, all those things, and then the chirping of the little beetle thing. Mm-hmm. and all of that, and you knew that it was the spell, and you were like, oh my gosh,
right. Like it was really well alluded to.
Yeah, it gets you right in the feels, and you don't need a whole lot of, honestly, magic woo-woo CGI stuff. You don't need the big stuff to make it feel big. And that's what I really liked about the story. And I think that's what the critics didn't like, honestly.
Yeah,
or at least that's what I think anyways. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I feel like there's a push in Hollywood to, if you're going to have a fantastical character, to overblow the fantastical elements. And I feel like subtlety is definitely closer to how daily life would go for us anyway. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, it always feels better when, somebody can barely see that something happened and kind of turn to you with this ambiguous look like, wait a minute, was that you, or was that just like random happenstance, right?
Yeah.
And Sandra Bullock has this great look after she lights the candle by blowing it into existence. Of just being subtle enough, the effect being just minor, nothing huge, but just enough that it builds that sense of wonder. And I've always felt that the best definition for the word magic is the generation of wonder in others.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like creating that wonder is perfect. So I did take a look. Apparently, Practical Magic is streamable on Amazon Prime. Or if you're in Canada, it's on Crave TV. You can also apparently buy a copy of it on Apple TV, but that seems like, throwing money at a rental. I mean, I think that went out in the days of Blockbuster, but I mean, that's just me.
I used to work there. Of all things, I'm dating myself.
I was going to say, like, did you ride your horse there, or, like...
Actually, I used to work at Movie Gallery and then a Blockbuster. I worked at Movie Gallery for like 2 years. I don't even know if anybody knows what Movie Gallery is. It was like trying to compete with Blockbuster.
And just not succeeding.
And it just didn't succeed. Yeah. But I tell you, in the 2 years that I was there, I'm gonna shock you. I'm pretty sure I watched close to 700 movies.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean,
so yeah.
The way I've got as much movie knowledge as I do is I worked in a movie theater for years. Right? Yeah. You know, and I mean, how often when you work in a movie theater or in a rental shop, do you wind up just like every, you know, so many days? Okay, I'm picking up a new movie. I'm going to watch this.
Oh no, 3 at a time.
Or yeah, like 3 at a time, right?
I was allowed 3 at a time, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to get to my shift early every day, catch a movie, do my shift, and then afterwards they'd be like, "Oh, you know, we're doing a preview of next week's movies. You want to show, you know, you want to sit there," and you're like, it's 2 a.m., but if this is coming out next week, I should watch it. Yeah. And
you take it seriously, because then you can tell the customers if it was a good movie or not. And you just tell yourself that.
Right. You know, you're desperate. And like the best is when it's a bad movie and you're desperately trying to find good things in it. Right. Like you're like, oh my God, this movie is terrible, but I have to recommend it. So I've got to find something I can latch onto.
That's usually due to a bad executive producer. I will blame executive producers till I'm blue in the face.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I mean, you know, and I think in this case, I think Griffin actually did a really good job of producing this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the cinematography was very well done. You know, the acting was he definitely got good performances out of Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, which, I mean, you wouldn't think would be hard, but I can't imagine it would be easy either. Right? Yeah. Especially because this movie was made just as they were starting their meteoric rise. Right? Like they were just starting on that upturn.
Yeah.
So you got to figure that they're like, they may not be full on divas yet, but they're like on their way to divadom, if that's even a word.
I mean, it was on the way to miscongeniality. I'm just saying.
Right, there we go. Right. Yeah, I mean, now granted, like, you know, Sandra Bullock's had some really good movies, but, you know, and then she's had, you know, other ones, right?
Yeah.
But I think every actor and actress can look at some movies very, very proudly and other movies that they just kind of like, you know, pretend they never were actually in. Right.
Well, from my understanding, a lot of actors usually say you agree to the crap projects so you can do the good ones. And usually the good ones don't pay a whole lot, but pay off later.
Right. In like, you know, the expensive AAA role that you get down the road because some director noticed you in one of the B movies that he was sitting around with a friend watching, right?
Right. Yeah. And you never know what that one project is going to end up getting you. Like, silly example, Mr. Robot with Rami Malek got him the role of Freddie Mercury in the Queen movie. So
right. And I mean, and that was a fantastic movie as well. We're gonna have to, I'm sure, cover that at some point. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good walkthrough of the movie. I would suggest to everyone who watches this, give us a comment in the comment section here about what you thought about the movie, whether you enjoyed it, what elements you would like to see more of, you know, or tell us why you despise the movie. Like, I'm totally down with that conversation as well. I only ask that you keep it civil.
What your favorite scene was, actually.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So let's find out what your favorite scene was. And, you know, we will, as always, I read every single comment that comes in, including the hilariously terrible ones. And, you know, I try to reply back to everybody. So yeah, let us know in the comments. In the meantime, guys, I think we'll call this video to an end. There's a little bit of a channel important thing I have to do here. So the episode, you know, like this episode is over. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.